Hey guys, what's up? It's Stacking Chairs, a youth ministry podcast all about serving in youth ministry, whether it be youth group or youth camp, whatever God has you serving in, that's what we're talking about. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Balhamus. I'm joined by a special guest today, James Coach. James, say hi.
How's it going, y'all?
James has been on the podcast before.
Yes.
Once before, right?
Yes,
And,
I was on this.
were you in the same role then that you are now, or no?
Technically, no. In another sense, yes. It's kind of complicated. I can explain, though.
Well, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about like your role at camp because we're
Yeah.
going to be talking about today, and then we can talk a little bit about what you're doing this
Sure,
fall.
for sure.
Kyle is taking a well-deserved time off here at the end of camp. Camp is no longer happening. There's always a chance you hear something happening in the background, as always, but this time it won't be at the exclusive camp.
There you go.
But yeah, camp went really well.
Yeah.
This summer, a little over 4,000 campers came through the Word of Life property here in Florida alone.
Yeah.
And our New York camp is still going on.
Yeah.
By the time this airs, we should be halfway through week 7, I think, up there in
Week
north.
6.
Week 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So camp's still going on up in New York. We have a couple camps up there, and we have camps happening all around the world right now with Word of Life. And so there's a lot going on, a lot of ministry happening around the world.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorite times of the year because not only do we get to do ministry down here in Florida, but they're doing ministry in New York. They're doing ministry all around the world. Bermuda's doing ministry. That's actually one of the places Kyle's going on vacation.
Is he?
Speaking of week of camp in Bermuda, which is super, super
I didn't know
cool.
that.
And so it's really cool to know that the gospel is being sent out in all these different places around the world at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
super cool.
So James, let's dive in a little bit. I mean, you had a busy summer.
Oh, yeah.
A crazy summer. So tell us a little bit about your role for the summer, and then talk about what that looks like in connection with your role throughout the rest of the year then.
Sure. So this summer, I got the privilege of being the program coordinator, which essentially what that means is me and my team, we head up all of the games. We MC a lot of the stuff. We run all the sports tournaments. We run the rallies. So we welcome kids in. We play games with them during the rallies. And so basically our entire job is centered around bringing kids in and showing them, what it looks like to have fun and how they can have fun as a believer in Christ. And then hopefully with the goal of helping, their walls be broken down or them come out of their shell or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And in hopes that their counselors can have good gospel-centered conversations.
Do you think, sorry, I'm going to interrupt because I want to know like what you're doing now in the fall, but I'm curious, do you think that like any level of a camp or event program should have a program person or a program team in your mind? Like, do you think it's that essential, or do you think it's just at the scale we're at?
I mean, it depends. I think it could go both ways. Part of it's the scale that we're at because we have so many different people serving in so many specific roles.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have to have that many people because just the amount of staff that we have, the amount of campers that we have coming in every week, you have to have designated people to be specifically over counseling, specifically over camp crew, specifically over program. But also I think there's extreme benefit in having, it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole team, but having maybe those 1 or 2 people that are
that's their focus.
Their main focus is to focus on those games and that area.
And that side. So we always used to say, I think they still say it up in New York when I worked up there, they'd say breaking down walls to build up lives. And that's kind of what program is.
Yeah.
And even, I don't know if you did, I don't think you got to listen to last week's, actually it came out today that we're recording, so you didn't get to listen to it. Gerard was here last week talking, and he talked about the importance of that connection of like having that good balance of doing fun stuff, but also that we have a very important balance here at Word of Life, especially of focusing in on what's important as well as the fun stuff.
Well, and I think it's all about keeping the main thing the main thing. The first thing that we do, the first night that the campers get here is that we share the gospel with them.
Yeah, and
we start our basis there and we work the rest of the week after that. And I mean, if we know anything about teenagers, it's that whenever they go into a new situation, they're looking for really any reason they can to not want to be there.
Yeah.
And so part of our program and our program team and allowing them to have fun and playing games with them and doing activities with them is because when they come to camp and they can have fun, they can laugh, they can enjoy themselves, they feel just less, less stress or whatever it may be. And they are willing and able to want to, I guess, be themselves and open up about things that they're struggling with. Because so often it happens, middle of the week after they've gone through so many incredible messages, but also they've done a lot of fun things. And they're like, okay, I felt it out. I know that this is a safe place for me where I can share what I'm going through. And that's that's why we do what we do. It's not just for the sake of having fun. It's because exactly what you said. We want to break down walls.
Well, it's like when you go to like a friend's house for the first time versus when you go for like the 20th time. Like we all had that friend in high school or in, maybe in middle school where we go to their house and we didn't feel like we had to ask for everything. Like if we wanted to go get a drink out of the fridge or get a snack or like, hey, we're going to go and like watch a movie. Like we didn't feel like we had to go and check every single thing. That's kind of what your guys' job is, to be the welcome committee, to make them feel welcomed and in place, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because when you go to a friend's house for the first time and you talk to their mom is going to say the same thing. Hey, you're at home here but you're always like, am I really though? I kind of got to feel it out. And after you've gone multiple times, you know that, okay, I believe what they're saying, that I am welcome here. Yeah. And so that's a really good point. That's kind of what we do, is to be like, hey, you're welcome here. Come and have fun with us. Like we love having fun. Yeah. And even more so than having fun, we love being able to be a follower of Christ and recognize that you can have fun without the things of the world. Yeah. Amen. As a follower of Christ.
Yeah. So how does that fit, to go back to my original question, how does that fit in with your current role now? Sure. Because throughout, you're not running summer camp all year round. I mean, in the Philippines, we have, did you know that in the Philippines, Word of Life has, I think, over 50,000 campers come through. It's a part of like the school curriculum. I think they actually have to go and like do events and retreats and stuff.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah. So they run camp all year round and it's insane. Actually, I was, complete sidebar. The other day I was talking with someone at my bank, of all places, and I was talking, they're like, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I work at a nonprofit called Word of Life. We have camps, events, we're all over the world. And she goes, oh, I've heard of that. I'm from the Philippines. I think I went to your camp when I was like a kid or something. I don't remember if it was a kid or if she just knew of the place, but yeah, I mean, it just to show you the scale, like we have camps happening all over the place.
Well, and it's even cool. Like I ran into some like my cashier at Publix a couple months ago, just in Hudson, and we were talking, and she saw my Word of Life shirt, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I went to camp there when I was younger." Really? And I was like, it's crazy. I mean, it's in Hudson, so we're right down the road, but it's still just the amount of people that have come through our camp and that have heard the gospel at least once before is so good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, even to go on that same path, I remember we went to a driving range, and the lady was there, and she's like, "Yeah, my friend who used to work here with me, he's since passed away, came to your events at Word of Life for your Christmas show." And I remember he went up when they had said to come up for the invitation. He went up and she goes, I didn't think he needed to do it, but he was really insistent on going up. And but like, I mean, she said that he went and like accepted like Christ as his savior at one of our events here. Yeah. Just some local guy, and has since passed away. And I pray that was a genuine decision. But anyway, I know we went on a complete rabbit trail there, but it is cool to like realize like there is an impact that happens at camp. I mean, an evangelical wasn't the word I was looking for. A gospel outreach, evangelistic is what the word I was looking for. Thing that happens that we get to do here at Word of Life. Yeah. So again, to reiterate my question, because I pulled us away.
Yeah, you're good.
How does that tie to what you do throughout the year? So tell us what you do throughout the year, and how do you think that those things connect?
Yeah, for sure. So I was in a transitional role right after we finished our winter camp. So I came in last fall, the last time we spoke on this podcast, I was a camp intern. So basically my entire job was revolved around winter camp and summer camp specifically. So whether that was just in the fall being in preparation for winter camp, and then after winter camp being in preparation for summer camp. But now I've transitioned into a role in our ministries department. So I work now specifically for the Bible Institute and with Bible Institute students during the year. And it's kind of one of those things that I love, specifically about our people in our ministries department, as we work in ministries during the year. And then when camp rolls around, we work for camp, and you just kind of flow right into that new area of ministry. So
you're kind of working for camp all year round then, because you're training counselors.
Yeah. Your counselors show up at the Bible Institute, and you're training them in the classroom then to do that ministry, during other points of the year. One of our students, actually my brother, he said in a testimony that he gave, see, I just threw that in there.
That's cute.
He mentioned how Pursue Camp was so cool because what they were learning in the classroom Monday or Tuesday through Friday, Friday evening, and that next weekend, like instantly they were able to apply what they were learning. and being able to counsel people.
Yeah.
And so I work with Bible Institute students, so we work with our counselors during the year, but even more so than that, as ministries and camps department as a whole, we go out to churches during the year. We're constantly promoting camp because we want to see people, we ultimately want to see people come to know Christ. And but
Amen.
It's still something that we want to promote because we want to get as many people here as possible. Yeah. And we're also really persistent with youth leaders, like, hey, we want you to bring your unsaved kids to camp. Yeah. Because ultimately we want those first and foremost to be able to hear the gospel. And so starting in August, right when summer camp ends, we're really in preparation for winter camps, intersect camps. We're in preparation, even starting for the next summer, whether it's just getting information out to youth leaders and parents or making phone calls or asking people how their experience was and asking them about things that we could improve on. So it kind of starts, just a couple of weeks after summer camp ends, and then we start preparing again.
Yeah. So I think the thing I really want to stick on though is how much, I mean, your job specifically is you're setting up the ministry assignments as well as, are you doing work assignments as well? So if you don't know, the way the Word of Life Bible Institute works is we're able to keep our tuition lower because people have a work assignment and a ministry assignment throughout the year. And so the ministry assignment, the goal is to get you hands-on in ministry in the community, which is extremely important. And then the work assignment is we keep overhead costs lower because you work, I think it's 4 to 6 hours a week. It's nothing like over the top. But in my mind, you're setting up counselors for the summer because, I mean, the schedule can be tiresome at times. I mean, you're working with kids who could come from many different backgrounds. Yeah. You're teaching these kids kind of a vocational approach, I guess. Sure. Like but you're teaching them how to work in ministry. Because so often we think of ministry as, ministry is the thing that I do because I go and I sit down and I share my testimony, to borrow your term. Or to go and, maybe it's real quick, I'm doing this one little thing and that's my ministry that I'm doing. Yeah. Or it's speaking. But really, I mean, ministry is everything that happens here because it makes camp happen. It makes the Bible Institute happen. It makes events happen. And you're a part of that. Yeah. So how do you get to, I mean, you haven't done the job for very long, just a semester, right? Yeah. But did you see in that semester opportunities to really drive that point home of, hey, I'm teaching you how to minister? Yeah, I think it's recognizing, it's allowing our Bible Institute students to recognize that whatever you do, whether in work or in deed, like you're doing it for the glory of the Lord. Yeah. And so whether you're doing what you want to call technical ministry, which is going out on the weekends and being a part of the drama team or being part of the band or being part of a team that goes out and throws an event for a church, whether you're doing that ministry or whether you're serving in your work area, ultimately you want to do everything to the glory of the Lord. And that transitions beautifully into summer because the schedule is pretty rigid as a Bible Institute student. You have class 4 days a week and then you're doing work assignments, you're doing ministry assignments. And I think this year specifically, just with everything that was going on, like the hurricane, for instance, our class this year got to do a lot of ministry, a lot of intense ministry. In the community. Yeah, in the community. And they were out with people, hands-on, face-to-face, helping people, showing the love of Christ to people. And I think schedule-wise, specifically, it's saying, okay, this is tiresome, but when you get to a week of summer camp and you're going Sunday afternoon through Saturday morning nonstop as a counselor, it's going to be even more tiresome. Yeah. And it prepares them, a little bit. It doesn't, obviously, you can't prepare them for the full scope of that. Yeah. But that's some super intense ministry that we're preparing them for in the summer as much as we can during the Bible Institute year. Yeah. It's fun. It's kind of fun I've worked at Word of Life long enough now that when I look every year, it's like these kids come in and they start at the same spot. And every year I get to see them start at the same spot. And it's funny because you'll sit there and you look at someone and they'll say, oh, I can't do this, or oh, this is frustrating, or whatever. And it's fun to watch and see. It's like I know that if you're faithful, because God's going to be faithful. Oh, yeah. But if you're faithful and you watch, you're going to see your life change. You're going to see yourself grow. And it's funny because you can almost see the same path happen every single year. And it's encouraging because you know that, like, you know what, God's not gonna. He's not going to leave them hanging at the beginning of the year and leave them where they are. They're going to learn and grow. Definitely, and that's one thing I think. I've come to realize, and I've really enjoyed getting to see this year being on staff, but even my last 2 years as a Bible Institute student, seeing it in my own life, but seeing it in the lives of my classmates of like, man, God is so much bigger than our doubts or our insecurities or us thinking, man, I can't do this. I can't be a counselor for 8 weeks. Yeah. I can't be a unit leader. I can't be on program.
I can't do this. And short answer, no, you can't. Like in your own strength, you cannot do that. But like you said, if you remain faithful and you recognize, okay, God, I know that despite how I feel that you are going to work through me and you allow him to do that, he's going to do incredible things in your life. And he's going to do amazing things, not only in your life as a Bible Institute student, but as you go into the summer in whatever role that you're serving. Yeah. And it's so cool to see the people who you meet them at the beginning of the year and they are petrified of the idea of having to be a counselor for 8 weeks. And then you look 6, 7, 8 months later and you see them as a counselor for the summer and you're like, they're doing an absolutely amazing job because we've seen how much the Lord has worked on their heart, not only during the year, but even as the summers went on. Yeah,
absolutely. It's encouraging. Oh yeah. I think is the easiest word to use for it.
Yeah.
So you guys have a lot of preparation to do. You have a lot of very intentional work to do with these students throughout the year. And you get to summer and you look at it and there's two things. There's always here's what we did right and here's what we can do better. Not that did wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of, hey, we did this wrong, but there's things that we can do more efficiently and better.
Yeah.
So if we were to split those two up, I want to hear, what are the things that you think, hey, this is something we did well. I want other people to know about it so they can also take this and put it into their ministry, their events, what they do. Things that you think are really effective, because you guys are in charge of not only making sure that things run efficiently, but you also need to remember that the person who's running it, they need rest, they need encouragement, they need their own spiritual growth. Like, you guys are in charge of making sure that those things don't go unanswered. What are the things in all of that, in working with these students in the program, in working with the people inside the program, working with the people who the program are for? What are the things you guys think you did well as a camp as a whole? Not just your role, not just your role. I want to hear as a camp as a whole.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a loaded question because, of course, I know I can tell you specific program things, but maybe I'll have to think a little bit more about as a camp as a whole. But I'll just give a quick answer specifically to my role, and then I'll give an answer more of a general sense. I think that we as a camp and we as a program team did a good job of helping the campers to feel engaged from the time that they got here till the time that they left. And that applies specifically to my job, but it applies even more so to the activities that we do, the rallies that we have. I think our schedule that we have for campers, really throughout a day of, maybe 16 hours that they're doing camp, there's really only a couple hours of the day that we give them free time, where we give them the ability to just do kind of whatever they want. And that's a double-edged sword, because sometimes free time is really needed and campers really enjoy it. And then sometimes they just want to sit around and do nothing. And so I feel like we have a good balance of, okay, from the time they get here on Sunday till the time that they leave on Saturday morning or Friday morning, if it's a junior week, whatever it may be, I feel like we do a really good job of helping them feel engaged all the way until the very end, whether that's with our rallies, whether that's with our games, with our activities, and even in our meals and stuff like that. I think that's one of the things that we do well. Not only program specifically, but as a whole.
I remember, the camp I went to, I didn't go to Word of Life growing up. I went one time, and I remember the camp that I grew up going to, was much more engaged in the free time part of it, I felt like. And I loved that free time part, but I also loved the side of, intensive program, whatever. Like, we had times twice a day we'd go and we'd listen to a message, and then you had free time in the afternoons. But even in your free time here at Word of Life, it's not just, hey, we have nothing for you to do, go and sit around, go back to your cabin. Like,
and it's like, and I think that's where the balance is really cool, because during that free time, you kind of have the freedom to do what you want as a camper.
There's a ton of stuff.
As with a counselor. So you could go to the pool, you could go to the rock wall, you could do a numerous different activities. You could sign up for sports tournaments, and you could do that during free time. And so, paintball, go-karts, laser tag.
Tubing.
It's so many really, really cool things that we get to do that I think specifically for the camper is a really good, I guess, service, for lack of a better term, that we provide for them. Of, hey, you can do all these cool things during your free time, and we have a lot of really cool things for you not during your free time. And so engagement with the campers, I think, is something
some of you guys did well. What's something you think as a whole for the camp that you guys did well, specifically for the students who are running the camp with you guys, like for staff?
Things that we did well specifically for the students. There were a couple times this summer where we had like a counselor appreciation day, right? So what we would do is we would recognize our Bible Institute students who were counseling, and we would, we got them all coffee, we got them all donuts. We did stuff like that. And just constantly I think one of the things that Kyle does really well is being willing and able to have one-on-one conversations, intentional conversations with any of our Bible Institute students who are counseling. He has a specific program for it called Coffee with Kyle, where someone could literally just have coffee with him and talk about literally whatever's going on. But you'll see him all throughout the summer having golf cart rides with our different Bible Institute student counselors. And I think it's hard because it's kind of like our Bible Institute students who are counseling are they're doing camp alongside these campers for 8 weeks. And so it's hard to try and find a specific time where you could take them out of that. But we provide every week, each of our counselors get the opportunity to step away from counseling for a couple hours in the afternoon, and they get to be discipled, whether it's by their discipler in the Bible Institute year or whether it's by their unit leader.
Sure.
And we, like I said, just trying to have intentional conversations with them and just constantly trying to encourage them, because I think I will be the first one to say, and I think anyone in camp will tell you, that counseling is one of the most difficult jobs that you can do at camp. And so it's making your counselors feel valued and letting them know that, hey, you are extremely, extremely important. And then outside of that, with our camp crew program, like with our staff who are helping run the camp, just providing a service for them. Like camp crew's kind of its own separate thing. They do their own events, they have their own rallies, and it's kind of cool that they get their own separate program. And then you have your bigger staff as a whole. And I think that our higher up leadership in camp, whether it's Kyle or Justin, they've done a good job as, me specifically being part of the staff, of making us feel valued and making us feel appreciated. And I guess trusting us with responsibility. I think that's a really key way of showing value to someone without necessarily having to say something to them. Is like, hey, I trust you with the responsibility to do this, and I trust that you will get this done. And that pronounces a lot of value on me specifically. And then being like, hey, I trust that you can run the entire program team. Like, you take it and you run with it. We trust that you can do that. And it's not necessarily them saying to me, hey, you're doing an amazing job, or you are, so valuable to us. And I mean, because they've said that to me, of course. But when they give me the responsibility to do something, I think it pronounces a lot of value. And they do that all across the board with our staff members.
Yeah, and that's got to be hard. I mean, Kyle and I have talked about this on the podcast before. It's got to be extremely difficult in any form of leadership to go and try and have that connection with so many different people who have so many different expectations, so many different love languages, so many different ways of communicating, so many different ways of feeling, valued. Like, you have to find a way to make, I mean, how big is the staff during a summer?
I mean, it's 200 plus.
I was going to say, it's like over 200 people, right? At least. There's a lot of people to try and individually encourage and build up. Like, that's tough.
Yeah. And the reality is that Kyle will say this firsthand. You can't, as a camp director, or even just as a staff member, you can't know everyone on your staff during a summer.
It's not possible.
It's not feasible. You can't do that. But I think Kyle does a good job.
10 weeks total, right?
Yeah, 10 weeks total. 9 weeks total for crew. Some of the leadership, 10 weeks total.
Yeah, okay.
But it's a difficult thing to try and know as many people as you. And I think one of the cool things about Kyle is that he does know a lot of people, but he'll get up from the stage and he'll say, I'm sorry, but I didn't get to know every single one of you this summer. And then some of the responsibility falls on our staff of recognizing that, maybe it's an unrealistic expectation that I have in my mind that he should know every single one of us, because with everything that's going on, that's just...
It's like watching a TV show and then you meet that actor in real life. You assume that you know that person as well, or that you assume that they know you as well as you know them.
Yeah.
But you don't know them. Or like listening to a podcast. Like, I mean, I listen to podcasts and I'll assume, oh, I know this person. Like, I listen to a podcast from IGN every single week, and the host, I'm like, okay, I know this host pretty well in my mind. And then it's like this disconnect of, I realize he has no idea who I am.
Yeah.
He doesn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he does, but it's like, there's this disconnect that happens, and you connect with people in a different way.
Yeah.
And Kyle and leadership in general as a camp at this size are kind of in that same boat almost, because they're going to do their best to get to know you. That's the difference.
Yeah.
But it's just not possible. Yeah. There's just too many people.
And recognizing that that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're doing a bad job of caring for our staff because our camp director doesn't know every single person specifically.
Yeah.
I can tell you that every single person is known and appreciated by someone in authority over them.
And that's, I think, the important thing I was going to say. The distinction is that you have a top-down leadership that passes on that care to a specific group of people, that they pass that on as well. I mean, even Jesus had the 12.
Yeah.
But he had way more disciples.
Yeah.
And so he focused in on, and then he even had 3 within that 12. And like, I'm not saying that this is how we should build necessarily, but I'm saying it works that way of, you know, you intentionally build into people and you expect them to go out and build into people as well. And so I think that is something that you guys do well and Word of Life has done well.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that like sticks out in your mind of like, hey, you know what? Anybody who's listening today, if they did this is something that we saw went really well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I love that we do is how we involve our youth leaders at camp.
Yeah.
And so basically we give them the option to kind of choose how they want to be a part of camp. We look at them and we say, hey, we have people who come and they will counsel your kids for a week.
Yeah.
You can be as involved or as little involvement as you want.
Yeah.
So I had some youth leaders week 8 who came up to me and they were like, hey, can we play in the games with our kids? And I was like, of course you can play in the games with your kids. Like,
that's fun.
It brings me so much joy when I see a youth leader. And so we were, the next day, we were playing like a water game out on the soccer field. And I saw these youth leaders who I talked to running with their kids, doing this game. And it was so cool. But it's recognizing that even just as much as we provide a service or a really exciting, fun opportunity for the camper, we do the same thing for the youth leader. We can say to them, hey, if you want this to be a week where you can just kind of get away, where you can relax, where you can chill, where you can let your campers just do that, then go for it. You know, go to the pool, do this, whatever. But if you want to be super involved, if you want to be involved with them during free time, if you want to be involved with them during after the rallies when we have talk by time, if you want to be involved during the games, during the activities, you can do that. And I think that's a good service that we provide to our youth leaders, because we see a wide range of people who say, hey, I want to be really, really involved, or who say, hey, it's not that I don't love my kids, but it's like, I want to kind of take a step back and let you do your thing. Yeah. And then there's some who kind of fall right in the middle. Yeah. And so I think it's cool that we give them the option and the opportunity to kind of choose what they want to do with that week of camp.
You have someone whose entire job is just to connect with the youth leaders then too.
Oh yeah. We have someone who, specifically cares for our youth leaders. And I think that we provide a program just as like, we provide a program for our youth leaders too. Like, hey, because there's a night that we do ice cream with our youth leaders, where Kyle will meet and speak with the youth leaders. We want the youth leaders to feel just as cared for and appreciated and loved and valued as we do the campers.
Well, and shout out to those youth leaders, because a couple times this summer, even I would be in the lunch line getting something and someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, I recognize your voice. Yeah. Or like, I'd recognize like you from a picture or whatever, like you're the guy on the podcast. And I was like, oh yeah. Speaking of like people knowing people and everything. Yeah. I'm not used to that. I mean, the podcast isn't that big, obviously, but like, I'm just not used to getting to know people, but it was such a blessing to get to meet some of you guys this summer. And thanks for listening. And thanks for bringing your kids to camp, because it is a great experience. And there's something special about summer camp that, I don't know, you just can't explain.
It's weird because we said this to youth leaders this summer, and shout out to any youth leaders listening, because you know this is true. You can talk to a kid about the same thing for 51 weeks out of the year. Yeah. And for some reason, when they come to camp, that 1 week out of the summer or that 1 week out of the year, that thing that you have been trying so hard to remind them of, or whatever it may be, they make that decision at camp. Yeah. And it's weird because we try and make allow our youth leaders to realize, hey, like, they're still your kids, and you do so much of the work beforehand and you do so much of the work after. We just have them for a week, and whatever decision they make during that week, whether it's salvation, whether it's dedication, whatever it may be, that isn't just a 1 week fluke. It's because of the hard work that you have put in beforehand and the hard work that you're going to put in after.
That's the important part I like, is it's going to take work afterwards. The discipleship that's going to happen afterwards is essential. Yeah. I mean, even our curriculum for Word of Life out of our youth ministry department is called 51 Ministries because it's for the other 51 weeks out of the year. And so it's that same mentality. Yeah. I like that. So, I mean, obviously, like, we love the camp here. We love everything that goes on. But not everything goes perfectly every summer. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So if there were things that you could give as cautions or things you guys are going to change for next year to the listeners and say, like, hey, here's something you should consider doing differently. Here's something we're considering doing differently. Yeah. What are some of those things?
I would say one of the biggest things that comes to mind is just this, how smoothly we can run our process of getting campers checked in and checked out, or getting
that's always a struggle for anybody.
And it's so hard. It's so hard when we have day campers. So for those of you who don't know, we have campers who will come during the week and who will stay here every single night who will stay in the cabin with the rest of their fellow campers. But then we also offer a service, day camping. So usually you see it during a junior week, or sometimes you see it with younger campers, or sometimes you just see it when people live really, really close. Yeah. They will get checked in the morning, and they'll do camp for the whole day, and then they'll get checked out in the evening. Yeah. And I think for as long as I can remember, that's just been a process that has always been a little muddy. Yeah. And this year we made some improvements on it, and we tried to do it better. But I think even more so going into next year, that it's going to be something that is greatly greatly improved on. And that's something that we're just constantly trying to work towards, because ultimately, like, we have a whole class that we do with our counselors beforehand called Customer Service 101. And Ethan Warren teaches that class, and he talks all about how Walt Disney employees get taught about customer service and some of the tips and tricks that they use in providing good customer service to their customers who are coming to Disney World. And so for us, it's like we ultimately we provide a service, and we want that to be as professional and as smooth as we possibly can. And it's gonna come with some kinks in the road, of course, but we're constantly trying to improve that and make that process better. Not necessarily for us, but we want to make that process better for the parent, for people, for the youth leader.
Absolutely.
And so that's something that I know that we can improve on. And I'm sure some people may have had some experiences this summer that, weren't their favorite experiences, but it's one of those things that, you're never going to have a perfect camp program as a whole. And so, but that's something that we're wanting to improve on. And going off of that, some other improvements that we're trying to make. We're trying to move our health center, get a better
an actual health center,
get a better system.
Well, not actual. We do have a health center.
We have an actual health center.
I don't want to make it sound like we don't.
It's totally legit, but it's one of our old camp cabins. And so what we would love to do in the future, hopefully next summer, if not the next, is to actually have a dedicated health center that's maybe further up towards our camp exit, so that our day campers could maybe check in and check out at the health center.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so that they wouldn't have to come all the way down to Camp Inn. Because for those of you who don't know, when you enter into our Word of Life property here at camp, you kind of drive all the way down towards Camp Inn, and up in the front end of campus, you have the conference center and you have the performing arts center where we do our rallies and stuff. But that's something that we're trying to improve on as well. And then I think one of the biggest improvements that we're seeing happening right now actually is just building new things and new projects going underway. We're putting in a new snack shack. We're putting in some new restrooms, which are going to be huge. We're putting in a new pool, and that should all be done by next summer.
Yeah, I saw that. It's exciting. Yeah, they're getting really far along over there.
Oh yeah, it's super exciting, and I think it's just going to be a really cool. It's just going to provide a really good service for our campers and for our youth leaders in the future.
Are there other things that you think, that's such an obvious one for anybody, like registration stuff, going through all the paperwork, doing that. Yeah. Always a pain.
And shout out to Justin, our assistant camp director, because
he renovated a lot of that.
I've heard nothing but good things about our registration process this year.
Good.
I was talking to some youth leaders one of the weeks of camp, and they mentioned that was one of the things. They were like, man, registration this year ran so much smoother than it has in the last couple of years. And I think that speaks numbers to our leadership of, we don't want to get complacent just because something ran okay. Doesn't mean that we want to keep it that way. We want to constantly be trying to make it run as well as we can.
I know Dylan, if you guys remember Dylan, he's been on episodes in the past, works in the marketing department here, has been working pretty hard with some other people as well in our IT department, and Tim, and trying to build out some stuff to make registration run even smoother, putting some technology behind some good systems.
Yeah, and I think even what you just said is one of my favorite parts about what we do here, and this is kind of a little side trail, but the fact that we have our media department, not only we have our media department in Florida, New York, I guess as a whole now, they're kind of one big media department, that starting with them, they're working on stuff already now for next summer that they can improve on to make to allow our experience to be better for our campers and for our youth leaders and for our parents. And it's not just the camp's team that's working on camp. I guess that's a bigger point of what I'm trying to say.
There's nobody at Word of Life who, there are times you have to say, hey, I'm sorry, that's not my job. Or, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Someone else should. Here's the right person. But the majority of times, I feel like there's a lot of us who we look at something, we say, hey, it's not my job, but I'm going to make it part of my job, or I'm going to help you with this thing. And then I'm going to help build it in a way that you can maintain it.
Yeah. And I think that can be a lot of what sets you apart from from anything else is just recognizing, hey, look, there's something that's not running well. It might not necessarily fall under my purview of what my job description is, but I want to see this run better, and I want to see a better experience in camp. And I think so many of the reason that a lot of us are working at Word of Life is because we love what Word of Life stands for. We love the mission that we have. We love camp, and we want to see it run better. We want to see kids come to know Christ. And so everything we do kind of falls into that. And so constantly, whether we're working in the camps department or media or whatever, wherever else it might be, we want to see that improve.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And obviously there's times where we have to be intentional about, hey, I can't do this. You need to know your own boundaries and not burn yourself out, because that's so easy to do, especially in a camp ministry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's why shout out to the Philippines, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Running
all year camp is crazy.
They went viral a while back for their swing. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen it, I'll try and link it if I remember. There's a video. They have a swing that goes 360 degrees all the way around. So you're on a big bar, you strap your hands and feet in, and you swing back and forth, and then you go up and over the bar. And the thing is huge. Like, you're going like, you're probably going 50 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it's pretty long. It's probably 20 feet long, maybe 40 feet.
That's wild.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty wild.
We're going to build one of those, maybe.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. OSHA just like sitting there waiting, listening to this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else that like sticks out? Like, hey, here's something that we're going to try and do better. It's something that I think is going to be not a complaint, obviously, but like how are we going to help the people who are listening to this podcast? They're running events, they're running camps, they're doing stuff. What are some things you're like, hey, here's something you should focus on that we are going to focus on next year?
I would say, I'm just trying to think of something else.
This is the part where I say dead air.
This is the part that Josh cuts out of the podcast.
Yeah, just cut it out. No, if that's the only thing you're like, hey, this is something we really got to focus on, and that's it. That's not a bad problem to have.
I know there are other things.
There's just things you're not allowed to share.
Yeah, legally, I'm not allowed. That's something I would always say from the stage.
Sign an NDA.
I would say something from the stage, and I'd be like, legally, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. It would be something so stupid. Like Kyle would be like, hey, we're gonna give double points today, and I'd be from the stage. I'd be like, guys, legally, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I think we'll do double points for this thing. There's always things that we can improve on. There's ways that we can better equip our counselors. Yeah. Because it can be intimidating for a youth leader to drop their kids off to someone they don't know and say, hey,
I don't blame them at all.
I don't blame them either. And I'm sure there are ways that we can better equip our counselors before the summer starts beforehand. Because don't get me wrong, we have some absolutely amazing counselors.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong in better preparing them for what, whatever may come. And, we have some tougher campers that come during the summer, better preparing them for that and recognizing, hey, here's how you can love them best. Yeah. If they don't want to be here, if they look at you in the face and they say that they don't want to listen to you or that they don't like you, like how can you still show them the love of Christ in a really difficult situation? And so there are better ways that we can prepare them. And I think ultimately that'll be extremely beneficial to our campers and to our youth leaders.
Yeah. I think, and before we're going to move on to small group here in a minute, but I think there's one thing that Word of Life does really, really well that I think everybody should do really well, no matter what part of ministry you're in, you need to do this well, is child protection policy.
Oh, yeah.
Word of Life, multiple times a year, has an overview of their child protection policy. It's rigorous. It's very intentional. Things that I take into my normal day-to-day life when I'm serving at my church or just in life. Things like, when you give a kid a hug, like you should be intentional about giving them a side hug and not doing a frontal hug, especially with a young child, or get down on one knee and hug them that way. Like there are little things. Don't put a kid on your lap, put them on your knee. If you're going to there are things, check with parents before you text one of the kids in your youth group, make sure that they're aware of your communication with them. Like there are so many things that you should be protecting yourself with, because there's so many ways that people get disqualified from ministry, and worse, do things that are extremely unethical, extremely illegal, things that you should be put in jail for, that you do not want to give yourself the opportunity to either actually commit, which God forbid that you ever do, or even have the appearance of committing.
And we do a great job of that here. Like we not only have a class, we don't only have a class at the beginning of summer. We have classes during the school year. We have a class during Pursuit Camp, specifically about child protection, and that applies to youth leaders. Whatever you're doing, whether it's in your youth group or whether it's running an event with your kids or whether it's doing your own kind of camp, it's not a conversation that people necessarily enjoy having all the time, but it's such a necessary conversation because there are so many things, like you said, that you don't even realize that you're doing that can disqualify you from ministry, that can get you in serious legal trouble. And so many times that happens because we don't have an understanding of what we can and can't do as a staff or as youth leaders with campers, with kids, with children, whatever it may be. And so we do a great job. And that's something that's another thing that we're constantly improving on. And we're constantly reminding our staff of, hey, here are the things that you cannot do. And you may not in your mind or even here are things that look like something that you cannot do, that you cannot be doing, even though it might not, the appearance of it, exactly, because that can be just as bad. And and especially,
we know people who have been disqualified from ministry. We know people in this community, not Word of Life community, I mean like within our local area, who have been disqualified from ministry because of the appearance of something or because of an accusation. Like Word of Life has a very intentional policy for child protection. Even to the point that on staff we have rules and stuff about like, you know, if as a married man, I'm not allowed to be in certain places with someone of the opposite gender. If it's just the two of us alone, like if that happens, like I'll get in trouble with work because we have because we're a youth ministry, we're very intentional about not being in situations that are gonna compromise ourselves.
And
that's so important.
And that's one of those conversations that anyone who's in youth ministry, anyone who's in camp ministry, they really have to make sure that's a priority. That you talk about that with your staff because it's not a problem until it becomes one. And if it becomes a problem and you realize that you haven't talked about it, then it becomes an even bigger problem.
Well, and that's something else is our reporting policy is like, you report it regardless. It automatically goes up and then it goes to the police if necessary. Like there is no grace given when it comes to child protection at Word of Life. And that's something that I think every ministry should adhere to and something that I think we do really well here. And here's the thing, not because it is going to save the name of Word of Life. That is not why we do that. It is because it is wrong. It's a morally wrong thing to have some of these things happen and an ethical situation that sometimes arises. And it's because we want to give glory to God and we don't want to be terrible people in the midst of that.
Ultimately, we want to be above reproach. We never want anyone to have to say, oh, well, Word of Life, they did this or they did that. We don't even want there to have to be a conversation of an accusation of something that may or may not have even happened. Why not? Why walk anywhere close to the fire when you could walk the complete opposite direction? Why play with matches with the
absolutely.
When we don't have to.
Anyway, we went really deep into that, but it's because I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast a ton before, but I think is one of the most important things you can do as a ministry is set really, really solid child protection policy and really, really good policy in general for this thing.
And I think it's a reminder to any youth leaders listening, like, hey, maybe this is a conversation that if you haven't had yet, that you need to have with your youth leaders.
Absolutely.
That you need to have with your staff.
Get it in writing.
Yeah.
Get it in writing, get people to sign it, make them agree to it every single year.
Yeah. And that's one thing we do. Every single one of our staff, all 200 plus people, starting from our camp directors all the way down through our camp crew kids, we all sign the child protection
I sign the standard of conduct and the child protection policy every single year. Just like the rest of our staff. All right, man. Well, that was really great. I'm going to probably call this episode the summer camp postmortem because it's kind of just like hey, what's summer camp look like now that it's over? What can we look back at?
And ultimately, I mean, before we move on to a small group, I just want to say like, it was really incredible being a part of this summer and God worked in some incredible ways through every single person on our staff. And it's just so cool to see that the gospel is working in the lives of kids, you know, of teenagers, of middle schoolers, of children. I mean, we saw over 600 people come to accept Christ this summer. And it's not about the numbers, but it's recognizing that, man, this is so cool that we got to be a part of this and we got to see life change before our eyes.
But there's people behind those numbers. And at minimum, even if not all those people made genuine confessions of faith, you had over 4,000 campers hear the gospel. You can't escape that. And that number right there, that's a genuine encouragement. And so praise be to God for all that.
Amen.
So let's move now on to small groups. Small groups of time where we talk about things that are funny, things that are sad, what's going on in our lives. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it, whatever it is, because that's small group. And today for small group, I asked James because program, there's always something at least crazy that's happened. A story that's happened. I want one good story from camp, from your perspective on the program team.
Sure. So let me preface this by telling the people a little bit about comedy night. So I mean, it's easy to talk about a funny story because we do something called comedy night, right? And comedy night's one of these things. I always say it's like the bane of my existence because you do all this preparation beforehand. And ultimately, you're performing and you're trying to make people laugh. Because in my experience, it's easier to make people laugh, not trying to make them laugh than just trying. There's just so much added
for 45 minutes.
Yeah. But so we do this thing every week called comedy night on a Tuesday night, and we did a skit this year that actually you, Josh, you told me about. If for those of you who don't know, Josh keeps like a notes document in his phone.
I genuinely do.
Every time that he finds something funny that he would like see in comedy night, he writes it down and he sends it to me because Josh was actually in a couple of our comedy nights this summer. And one of the things we did was this skit called Silent Library.
Which is an old sketch from, I think, Mad TV years ago.
We did our own little twist on it. Basically what I would do is I hosted all of our comedy nights, and so I would have all of the guys come and sit down at a table and I would make them have a mouthful of water. And basically what happens is I shuffle a bunch of Uno cards and there's one red card.
You guys got like big ones too, right?
Big Uno cards, and there was one red card and there were 5 green cards, and whoever drew the red card got the punishment. And there were like 6 different punishments. But basically one of them was what we call a mystery milkshake. And basically what I would do is beforehand, I would blend up the most ridiculous stuff. Like
the most classic youth ministry thing to do is to blend up stuff and make people drink it.
Oh yeah. And so, you know, they would all have a mouthful of water. And one of the things I loved is by the time the summer was coming to an end, we would get Justin Crow, our assistant camp director, to be in all of our comedy nights so we could make him do Silent Library. And it was like you would shuffle your cards and someone would hold up the red card and all the campers would start screaming. And then they would just like put their head down and put their...
With a mouthful of water.
Yeah, with a mouthful of water. And then whenever Justin would get the punishment, everyone would just spit all their water out because it was so funny. There were multiple times that Justin had to drink the mystery smoothie. And he was standing there on stage in front of hundreds of campers trying to drink this disgusting smoothie. And genuinely one of the funniest moments I've ever seen. Like seeing him like start drinking it and then like retching some of it up and then starting to drink it. It was disgusting.
That is the most youth ministry thing to do. Is to drink nasty stuff.
Youth leaders, if you ever need a game, you will be surprised at the amount of your kids that will say, "Oh, I'll drink that." Because I'll always say, "Oh, does anyone think they can finish the mystery smoothie?" Oh, like dozens and dozens of hands will be here.
And it's always so. It's the same thing about the same guy who's seeing how many chairs he can lift at once. It's that same guy who's like, "Oh yeah, there's that girl over there that I've had a crush on.
Exactly.
She can't wait to see me drink this mystery smoothie."
For sure. But those are some of my favorite memories from the summer. There's tons of crazy funny stuff that went on, but yeah.
Man. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for taking the time, James, to come and talk a little bit about, you know, what was camp like this summer, the ups, the downs, and guys, take some of this and apply it to your own event, do whatever you want, but also check out camps.wool.org. Come check out Word of Life. We have some great camps that happen.
We do.
Check out.
And then just for those of you who want to be a part of summer camp, I mean, it fills up quick. So we would love for you to come and be a part of our winter camps, our summer camps, but start looking into it now if you want to get your kids to camps.
Check us out everywhere. Stacking Chairs Pod at WOL.org. Send us an email if you'd like. And remember to always
There you go. Did I do it good?
Yeah.
Cool.